So our essential question for this lesson, what are the steps to solving two-step equations? So we're going to solve two equations. As we go through and solve those two equations, we're going to have the solution in one column, we're going to have the steps in the middle column, and then we're going to do a check to make sure that the answer we got does work. So I'm going to show you how we expect you to do checks. And then we'll do two examples, and you can use those two examples to write some general steps for solving two-step equations. So vocabulary. So you got like terms, variables, operations, and inverse. So some of those we've talked about in previous lessons. So let's start by copying down the problem that we need to solve. So this first example, x divided by 4 minus 3 equals 2. So when you're solving equations, one of the things that you want to do is the inverse. You want to undo the problem that was done to get the 2. So we want to use the inverse operations to isolate our variable. So use inverse operations to isolate the variable. You want to get the variable by itself. That way you know what it's equal to. The variable x is equal to this number. So our first step to isolating our variable is to get the part that has the variable, that's the part that has the variable, to get that part by itself. So to get that part by itself, we need to move the 3. Okay, so the 3 is there. We don't want the 3. We want the x over 4 all by itself. So we would add 3 to both sides and simplify what we have there. So the first inverse operation we are going to do is add 3 to both sides. So negative 3 and a positive 3 cancel. That equals 0. So you have just x over 4 equals, and then 2 plus 3 is 5. Now we have x divided by 4. Okay, so right there we have x divided by 4. So what's the inverse of divide? The opposite of dividing would be multiply. So we're going to multiply by 4 on both sides. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other side of the equation. So we're going to do a multiply by 4, multiply by 4. And over here we have a 4 on top and a 4 on bottom. So 4 over 4 is equal to 1. So that's 1x equals 5 times 4, which is 20. So the next thing we want to do is check. So you want to check your solution. Now when you check, you cannot solve. Checking involves evaluating. So you're going to substitute the answer that you think it is. So we think the answer is 20. Substitute that back into the original equation and then simplify using order of operations. So these are all things we got from a previous lesson, and we're going to apply them in the checking section of this example. So the problem was x over 4 minus 3 equals 2. The x we got was 20. So it's 20 over 4 minus 3 equals 2. That's what we're checking. Does it equal 2? We're not changing the 2 side. The 2 side does not change. We are only going to be working with this side of the expression, and we're going to simplify it and see if we get 2 equal to 2 at the end. So you have to use order of operations. So order of operations, there's a divide and a subtract, a divide and a subtract. So in our order of operations, our divide comes first. So we'll go 20 divided by 4. That's 5 minus 3 equals 2. And then you do the subtraction. 5 minus 3 is 2. 2 equal to 2, yes it does. So x equal to 20 is the correct answer. Next example. So we're going to solve 4w plus 2w equals 24. So we'll copy down our problem first under solution. So 4w plus 2w equals 24. So notice we have two expressions, two parts with a w. So we have to get it so that there's only one w, because we want to get the one variable by itself. If you have two variables, you have to use some of the techniques we talked about before to get it down to just one variable. So in this case, we have to combine like terms first. Okay, you can't get the variable all by itself if there's two of them. Since the variables are exactly the same, a w and a w, we can combine them. 4w plus 2w is 6w. Now we're going to use inverse operations. Now that we have only one variable in the problem, we're going to use inverse operations to isolate the variable. The inverse operation we're going to use here is divide both sides by 6. The reason we're going to divide both sides by 6 is that this means 6 times w. The opposite of times is divide. So we're going to divide both sides by 6. So divide by 6, divide by 6. So 6 over 6 is 1. So that's 1w equals 24 divided by 6, which is 4. Now we're going to check. So to check your solution, you go back to the original equation all the way up here. That's the original equation. 4w plus 2w equals 24. You're going to substitute the answer you got into the variable in the original equation. So 4 times 4 plus 2 times 4 equals 24. That's what we're checking. That's why I put the question mark. We're not sure that it equals 24 yet. We have to do the order of operations and evaluate the left-hand side to see if we get 24 equal to 24. So order of operations. There's some multiplying in the problem and some adding in the problem. So multiplying comes first. Since they don't affect each other, you could do them at the same time. So 4 times 4 is 16, plus 2 times 4, which is 8. We want to see if that equals 24. 16 plus 8, so 8 and 6 is 14, and 1 and 1 is 2. 24 does equal 24, so it works. If you need to set up a problem like this and do the adding, do it. And don't erase it. Leave it there. I like to see all that work. Okay, you're working things out. You're thinking things through. Since that worked, W is equal to 4. That is the correct answer. Okay. If I gave you a handout to work on after you watch the video, so go ahead and do those couple of problems. So I'll see you next class.